Welcome to Season 2 of On the Light. I'm happy to be releasing this very special episode of an interview about Guruji given by his daughter, Geeta Iyengar. This interview took place in 2003. Kristin and Lee were in Pune for Guruji's 85th birthday celebration. Our region was busy preparing for the 2004 convention that would be held here in St. Paul. Unfortunately, neither Geetaji nor Guruji were able to attend that year, so Kristin and Lee had the idea to ask Geeta for an interview that could be shown at the convention. She generously accepted. You will only hear Geeta's voice in this interview. Kristin and Lee wanted it to be that way. I think you'll find, as I did, that hearing the questions isn't necessary to be able to follow along with what she is speaking about. What you are hearing today is just the audio of the interview. Perhaps at some point we can release the video in some format. Please enjoy this episode of On the Light.
You see, Guruji was in a way famous, as I remember. He was giving demonstration in those days, and at least those who were interested in yoga were definitely knowing him. But his fame spread, I would say, after middle of the 50s. And before that, when I was in school, in primary school, etc., that time, of course, he was known to the teachers, to my teachers, as a person who does yoga. That's why every teacher used to just sort of point out at that, oh, you are daughter of Iyengar, yoga teacher. Yes, so a profession was different than any other professions, as my friends used to say, because normally the usual professions are like teacher, doctor, or working somewhere in the government service, etc. And here, this was something unusual. Whenever I used to say that my father is a yoga teacher, it was unusual for them to hear something. School teacher at least was known, but yoga teacher was, as a yoga teacher, this profession was unknown. And, but whenever I used to say yoga teacher, there was something different, that, oh, this seems to be something different. So that kind of feeling was there, a reaction was there from the friends, from the teachers group, etc. But if you ask my life or our life in those days or these days, it was simple. It is now also, I would say, inside the house is a simple life. He is well known now, but when we are in the house, we are all simple people. We eat simple food, live simple life. So that way the life was simple. But still, I remember that he was always busy with his work, is a fact. From morning till evening, he was really busy because he used to go to teach outside. He himself would practice. In those days when he was practicing, he never liked us if we disturb him, like making noise or, children when they run from this end to that end and kind of make a noise in the house. That he used to control, because I think that was the time period for him to really do his sadhana. So perhaps when we were making noise like that, he used to get a bit annoyed and say, stop it. So we know that if he is practicing, we are supposed to be silent, be quiet, so that his practice goes smoothly, though we were not knowing exactly that the reason behind it. But now I can understand when he explains certain things with depth, there is a great sadhana behind it in those days. Because we could see him practicing, we were watching him what he is doing. But now we realize that practice had a great depth, And that's why he could explain us now at this stage at different level. But otherwise, as far as the house is concerned, we were leading simple life.
What do you recall about how the family?
You see, we had a small house. We had only 2 rooms, one kitchen and just one room. So whenever he was practicing, we used to be most of the time in the kitchen, studying ourselves. When he was practicing, whenever it was school timing, we were going to the school. But when we were in the house, we definitely had to just sort of see that we are not supposed to make a sound, etc. But I remember him very well, like whenever he used to do Paripurna Matsanasana kind of thing, or if we are around nearby, then he used to say that, away, like Hanumanasana. He knew that he may hit us when we are children around there, like when going to Vipricha Chakrasana and doing Hanumanasana or balancing poses, where in those days, I remember his actions used to be little faster than, he was quite young, so actions used to be faster. So you could see his long legs sort of going from one end to the other end as the room was very small. So if he was doing Ekpad Kaundinyasana or Dvipad Kaundinyasana, we could see that something like his body becoming huge and coming to that position, throwing the leg on one side. Or if it's Paripurna Matsanasana, to take that hand behind the back, he used to really make his hand so much to go away from the body just to fix the hand properly on that Padmasana leg. So this was something marvelous to see. I remember it very clearly, all those things, because there was my inner tendency was there to watch all these things and think about it, that though I was not a very keen practitioner as such in those days, but this used to enthuse me to see all these things, his movements, his freedom of the body, though I was not knowing in those days the word like freedom of the body, but his arms and legs used to be really long in his movements. So I could see that as though he's covering from one end to the other end the whole room in his Uttita Parshva Konasana, etc. So that was something very nice to see. And whenever he was practicing, we had that bearing on our mind. This was something serious he is seriously doing. So we could not sort of, not only keeping ourselves quiet, etc., but I think we, in a way, respected his sadhana, that he is doing sadhana, so we have to sort of remain quiet and not to disturb him. So we won't go and question also anything in between unless he finishes his practice. So after that, we may ask something if we want to question him or find out something. But otherwise, we used to be really quietly watch what he was doing. When we were in that small house, Guruji was not conducting big classes. There was almost 1-to-1 teaching, or sometimes 2 or 3 people at a time. And I remember the foreign students coming to Pune, to our house in 1958 or so, 58, 59, not earlier to that. But in Bombay, we had seen students, some Western students coming there when he was conducting the classes in 51, 52. I remember well that some foreign students, 1 or 2, used to be there. But as far as Pune is concerned, 58 or 59, if I remember, the students began to come from foreign countries. In 60s, of course, after 60s, the group used to be little bigger than what we had seen in late 50s. In late 50s, when he was conducting the classes, I don't think I participated in the class as such, because I used to have school, and the school timing was such that there was no time for me to attend his classes. But yet in 59, when some French people had come, I remember it was a holiday, and that day I did, because it was holiday, and I thought when he's teaching, let me also do. And he allowed also. Whenever we wanted to do yoga, he allowed us. He never stopped us, but he never forced us. So when in 59, on that, especially that holiday when I was doing, where these students were watching my legs and knees especially, and then they were telling, oh, her knees are like your knees. So that time I didn't realize what they mean by that. But Guruji's stretching of the legs, stretching of the knees was such that his cap really goes inside when he stretches his knee, and there is a round shape to it. And normally you find Westerners having the projection of the knees, the knee comes out. So when he asked me to stretch the leg in Trikonasana, Parsvakonasana, my kneecap straight away went inside and I could hook it inside. So he said, this is what I want. And they were just comparing, saying that, oh, her knees are like your knees. So that time I felt great. Oh, something at least, somewhere I'm closer where I can stretch my knee, and that comparison made me to get sort of elated from inside that something is coming like my father, what he does. That was something really a joyful moment at that time. But I think the first big group came in 73 from South Africa. That was 10-15 people were there from South Africa. That time we had to really arrange a hall to take such a big group. That was the first time where he conducted a group class for the Westerners. So earlier to that, we had seen his general classes. Sometimes on Wednesday, that time general class was on Wednesdays. Wednesday evening was 6 to 8 was the time where we used to have a general class in one of the schools of Pune. And sometimes we could see some Westerners coming once in a week to do there. In those general classes, I had seen him from 61 onwards, his teaching. But 59 was the first time when I realized about my knee stitching. And 73, Guruji conducted the group class for South Africa in one of the schools near our institute only, in Vidya Bhavan School. Actually, earlier to that, we had just thought of naming this as a Yoga Deep. He wanted to give something name of that kind. Yoga Krupa. He thought of that also. Because the construction was not yet started. But when we just sort of saw this land, I wanted to have the institute. He thought of Yoga Krupa, Yoga Deep. These are the names. But unfortunately, my mother expired after the Bhumi Puja of this land, which took place on Thursday, and she died on Sunday. So it was just a question of 4 days. And that time we thought of just naming this institute as a memory of her dedication to yoga. And that's how the name changed, and we made it Ramamani Iyengar Memorial Yoga Institute. And I think it was appropriate as well. I mean, that time was such, it was a shock to the whole family, suddenly happening like this. And she was really a dedicated person as far as the subject is concerned. I think when Guruji was practicing or teaching, she never interfered with this job of his work, and gave him all freedom. She never really bothered him about the family life, or as a family has to run in I know, when you know that if the house has to run, a lot of things are there. But she gave that much freedom to Guruji to practice. and she was really taking care of every other thing in the house. She was a good teacher as well. I am surprised that people now come to the classes, we repeat the names of the asanas, we keep on telling them the meaning of the asana, the meaning of the name of the asana. But people don't remember just simply the name of the asanas, but she was remembering each name. There was no confusion at all. She would tell us if I am confused sometimes about twisting, like whether this is Marichasan or the Matsandasana, she would tell me. Because in those days there was no book, first of all. As the book was not there, rarely I used to hear the name of the asanas, unless Guruji sometimes speaks about it. Now the book is available, obviously you can see the names, etc. But she was very much sure about which asana is which one. Number 1 Marichasan, number 2 Marichasan, number 3 Marichasan, number 4 Marichasan. She was very much sure about it. Which leg, which hand, though she really had no time to practice. We children were all the time around her, school going children, and being young, she has to take care of our breakfast, lunch, dinner and everything. So rarely she used to have the time to practice. But just looking at Guruji, perhaps his practice, looking at Guruji's practice, she could really sort of got involved herself in that manner, I would say. Though on the practicing side it was less. But she knew some of the asanas, like what to do when something happens, like neck pain, shoulder pain, women's problem. I think she was the first one to tell me to do Baddha Konasana and Upashta Konasana. When I started menstruation, she told me that these two postures you should regularly do so that you don't get the pain, back pain, etc. So I was quite surprised about it. That way she was my teacher, I would say, because she was very near. I mean, in the house, if anything I had to ask quickly, I could just ask her that after this standing pose, which one? So she would reply me. And also at the same time, I think she was looking after the house, etc. marvelously. Like we never had any work to do. She would take care of it. And also she was good with the neighbors. All were good friends for her. She will go and stand there if they are in need. Physically, she will go and help in case somebody is not well, somebody is sick. Even in those 5 minutes, she will say that, okay, today I will go and find out because she is not well. Yes, the next door or opposite house, etc. She will go and just see that, because they used to come and tell that today somebody is not well, fever and kind of things, or pain, catch. So she will go and just have a look or suggest something, some Indian medicines or something, food. If they have diarrhea or constipation, she will suggest the food that today you eat this, so it will be all right, So that was, I remember that she was very friendly with everyone. She had inclination towards yoga, though she could not find much time as such in her life. And very good householder, I must say, because everything she took care of. I tell you, you see, Guruji in those days was really fiery. Like the fire element was so much strong in him that with that willpower that he wants to do something. And it could be sometimes even this, that he had to really work himself to bring this art. It's not that he has been taught by someone, though he worked with his Guruji for just 1.5 or 2 years, let us say. But he really worked hard to find out how to apply this or how to bring the sadhana to the higher level. So that way, because of his work, lots of efforts, helping people in postures like extending, he physically used to help, like extension of the arms, legs, and very strong grip he had when he has to really turn somebody or elongate somebody's spine. lift somebody's spine. Very strong person he was at that time. So this all, perhaps the strain was there on his body, on his mind, all the time thinking that how to help people. So he was fiery in that sense. And knowing very well that he is a very disciplined man, she would also keep the house in such a manner that he doesn't get annoyed with anything. And I remember very well that sometimes, even before he opens his mouth for anything, she knew what he requires, like coffee, tea, or food. It's a time. So she knew that now he requires this. And we were quite surprised that how she can make out. I mean, if somebody comes and asks that, okay, cup of coffee, then we hear that those words that he requires coffee. But I don't think she any day asked. Moment he entered in, she knew that he requires water, coffee, food, whatever. So that was something very. I mean, in those days we used to ask her that, how do you know? So she used to just laugh. But it was surprising us that otherwise people, I mean, we used to ask her, okay, we were hungry, we want something, I want coffee or tea. But here, with just his eyes, she could make out that what he wants. And she used to provide that. Papers, anything, letter, paper, if somewhere is placed, she would know that he will search for that, but she knew that this is here. So she would ask, are you searching for that letter? Okay, it is here. So she was very much aware of those things. Of course, I remember when he first went to foreign countries, because we all went to Bombay to say goodbye to him. And I remember the small airport of Bombay in those days. It was a very small airport, and the plane used to be just few yards from us. But we used to miss him a lot. In first his visit was, I think, in 54, then 56. 54 he went to Europe, 56 he went to America. Then in 1960 onwards he was going regularly to Europe. That's how I remember very clearly about it. 54 and 56, though it was too early for us because we were in school. But I think we missed at that time him a lot, because we could feel depressed that now 2.5 months, 3 months he won't be here in the house. And really we were missing him. To tell you frankly, as a father, we were really missing him for those 2-3 months. And we used to wait for the letters. In those days, telephones were not there. And it was not that easy to telephone from one end to the other end. It's very costly. So we used to really wait for his letters to come. And I remember the psychological fear was so much when he used to fly. The fear was there that if something happens to the plane, what to do. And I used to do the japa of taking the name of the God, that, oh, his plane goes very safely, it lands and kind of thing. And when how we were knowing landing of the plane, my mother used to wait there second day, and then we used to be back from Bombay. And she used to telephone to the airport to find out whether this plane has landed there. So after getting that news, we used to be back, just to know that the plane has landed. Then from 1960 onwards, he started going regularly over there. I used to wait for his letters, because every detail used to be there in the letter. Whether it is his demonstration, teaching. Now sometimes I feel that I should have kept those letters. But I remember those letters. He gave every other detail to me, like even yoga, all the four padas, the notes he made on the four padas, Yoga Sutras. He had written with his, I mean, it was in handwriting. And I read those 4 paras in first time in those days when he had just made notes over that. Then he used to inform us if there was a demonstration that what he spoke in the beginning of the demonstration, then how the demonstration was, everything in detail he used to write. Now I surprised at how he was finding this time, because it was very busy schedule as far as we know. He used to walk from one end to the other end in Switzerland, or I would say one mountain to the other mountain to teach, because those chalets were in different places, different areas. So obviously he has to climb down, climb up, and go to the other chalet to teach. And when he used to return back, we could see the strain of his work. He used to really become very thin, because the food was the big problem. It's not now that much, because you get all the Indian food everywhere. Anywhere you go, you get Indian food. In those days, he used to say, anywhere you go, it's only non-vegetarian food available. Nothing you get except the bread or coffee. If nothing you have, you have to just ask for the bread or coffee, and that too in some of the hotels and not in every other hotel. Now I think there are so many Indian hotels that you get any Indian food now. But in those days, he really suffered. He lived just on bread and coffee. Most of the time, coffee, used to say. Because in his room, they used to keep coffee ready. So he could prepare his own coffee and have it. And we could see that how when he used to come back, he was absolutely thin, completely getting thin down, and no. I mean, I used to feel that why is looking so sort of sick, like after after bedridden, when a person is bedridden and you see his face and everything used to sort of get pulled down. But after 63, 64, the things improved. He started getting good food, and we could see the change. But earlier to that, a very heavy work. Then he used to say that how really he has worked hard over there. With all those oppositions he had, Indian philosophy or Indian culture, which they were not liking, I think it was hard way for him to put this. Now people are just sort of thinking that, oh, he was a master, he was going and kind of teaching, etc. And now all his students are also flying from one end to the other end to teach, but in those days, it was not accepted that easily. So I would say he had put a lot of efforts in those days for people to accept it. And that's why I think he has that broad view. It doesn't matter even if you don't accept the philosophy. But if it is just a health point of view, he will explain to those people in a health point of view. Children, if he has to teach children, he accepts that subject and brings it to that level so that children can understand. Or those who haven't got faith in any other this thing, it doesn't matter to him. He just converts them in such a manner that they at least pick up yogic mindedness. And I think that he had from very beginning. He never forced ideas, but he was sure about what he was doing, and obviously on that plane he could explain easily that do this way, do that way, so that it works. And it worked in that manner. So I remember that he has put great efforts to bring yoga to this level. In those days, people were not accepting, there were no yoga teachers. Now you find so many yoga teachers, not only Western yoga teachers, but now Indian yoga teachers also there. But in those days, no. He's the first person perhaps to bring yoga to this level where people could accept. Okay, ready? I could see, I remember very well how gradually the financial position changed in the house. When I was in primary school, we used to really have hard days. But as far as food or the two meals are concerned, it was fine. But still, I know that how my mother really run the house. One vegetable, simple dal, rice, that was the food. And chapatis, this was the thing we were having as a food. But Saturdays, I remember, Saturday, it was compulsory a cup of milk for us. We three used to be going to the school, like myself, Vanita and Prashant. Sunita was very small, still small baby. And on Saturday, it was a morning class. Other days, we had school from 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening. But Saturday was the morning class from 7 to 11 o'clock. So there used to be a short break at 9 o'clock. And house was very close to the school that it was just, we used to run from school to the house to have some. So on Saturday, it was a cup of milk for us, for three. So she used to keep ready. Moment we enter in, we will wash our feet and have that milk and again go back to school, because 11 o'clock we were coming back and she knew that we will have the meals immediately after that, lunch after that. So this was the day that Saturdays we used to wait for that milk. It was difficult. But I don't remember that we had any grievances for it. That was the life. And I think simple was the life, and therefore there was no question of asking that we want this, we want that. We never perhaps asked in those days anything. And eating anything outside was not accepted. So never, our parents never gave us any money to buy anything. And that is still, I think, we are following as a discipline rather than, this is not the question of finance or anything, but it's just a discipline that always they used to say, whatever is homemade. It makes no sense just buying something from outside and eating. So that I think that remained as a samskara, that we don't know how to buy anything. It's very rarely we go for food outside. And the house was very simple. I tell you, in 55, 56, or earlier to that, even 1951, 52, some of the big shots used to come to the house. Because Guruji was teaching some of those people who were in politics, like Jayaprakash Narayan and Mukherjee, who was from Communist Party, and some of these used to be visitors to the house. I remember very well, we used to have simple carpet, simple chatai like carpet they used to sit down on the floor. We never offered them chair because there was no chair at all. And we had the wall in the wardrobe in the wall itself, a small wardrobe where we used to keep our clothes, etc. One was in the kitchen, which was meant for keeping the rice and dal, etc. The grocery that we need every day in the house. And there was one in the second room, where we used to keep our clothes. And I don't remember we had any cupboard or anything. I sometimes feel the life was really not complicated as much as now it is. The simple life was so straightforward that have just one clothes on the to wear and the one just to dry up. And a third one was just a little better if we had to go somewhere out. So a little better dress than that, that's all. And the chair came almost when he started writing the book. Chair and table, we bought it because when he started writing the book, he found it very difficult to sit down and write. So that time, first time, he brought the folding table and folding chair for him so that you could sit and write on that. Otherwise, I remember him having a writing pad, writing the letters, sitting down on the floor. We were studying, sitting down on the floor, and this chair and folding table came perhaps in 50, somewhere in 58 or so. When he started just writing, the idea was going on. Though later, really the book started little later in 60s. But this idea came that something like in book form has to come. And the cupboard came somewhere in 1954 first wardrobe, iron cupboard. When he went to Switzerland, I don't know what he earned at that time, because we were not supposed to ask anything about this. Children were not supposed to ask about how much money he gets or what he does. The salary, etc. If it has to be written in for the school information, then he used to fill up those forms. So we never saw what he's writing and what he's signing there. But first time we got our iron cupboard in 54. The cost of that was in those days somewhere 450 or so, 450 rupees or so. But that money what he brought, I think he spent it for my sickness, because I had nephritis in 1955. So when he returned in 1954, in June, somewhere in August or so, I was sick at that time in 1954 from very very beginning of the year, like month of June, my school this thing was affected, because from June 1954 I remember I had lots of problems, like I used to have fever and cold and cough and pain, headaches, etc., which doctor never realized what it is. And somewhere in January 55 he realized that this is nephritis. When I had convulsion, and then when I went to unconscious state, that time this doctor realized this is something very serious which was happening from month of June. So 1954 June, when he went to Switzerland, he was there for 2 months or 2.5 months. I'm not very much sure at that time, but somewhere he came in July end. And that time he bought first this cupboard. And then rest of the money he had to spend on my health, as it was very poor in those days, which he told me later that whatever I earned in 54, it was for the hospital and kind of thing, because I was very sick. 56, when he went to USA, New York, the days changed a bit. And then onwards, I think we were very happy to see when sometimes he used to bring small cameras and kind of thing. First camera when he brought in 56, after coming to Pune, we went to Bangalore. And my grandmother was very happy. So seeing him having the camera in hand, and wherever she used to sit or do anything, she used to say click. My father went on clicking every time, because grandchildren were around, then her children around, like my father, my uncles, all were there. And we have still those photographs. The small box for camera, he had a very small camera. But I think it was a joy in the family to see that he has a camera and he's clicking. And whole family photographs has been taken at that time. I remember that. So that's how perhaps it started gradually getting built up, like iron cupboard, camera, and table and chair to write, etc. And then the things changed gradually. But I'm very happy. Sometimes there was just when I remember, yes, in those days really we were not having anything, and now we could. I can remember it very well, that how gradually the things developed, and we could see the better days. And by the time my mother came to that level where she could think of the house, our own house, in 72 we started thinking about that. 1972, Vanita got married, and afterwards there was a talk that let us have some small house and the institute, or hall rather than institute. She never said institute, but she said we require one sort of hall where we can conduct the class easily. You will be surprised that when this land was bought, We were telling that our house should be near the road so that we can just quickly go out or come in. And she was the one who insisted that house has to be behind the institute, because that is not the big thing. But the institute has to be right in the front, because that is the main thing. House is not a big thing. It's just for a few hours we have to live in that house. But this is something, a big job. It's not a small job. So she insisted that institute has to be in the front and house has to be at the back. Let us be at the background and let this be at the foreground, and we follow that. She was the first one to tell. Even Guruji perhaps did not think in that manner. Just we were discussing. But the first point she said, no, house has to be behind and let the institute be in the front. Because that has to be seen by the people. People should know that classes will be conducted here. If the house is in the front, then they don't know that behind the house there is an institute, a hall, etc. And that in those days we thought just we will have a small hall. We never thought of having this big building as such. It is later development. When Guruji discussed with the students, and when the students, Bombay students or Pune students saw this land, then they thought that to give the design and kind of thing. Earlier to that, there was no idea about any design or anything, but have just a hall and toilet, a dressing room to change, and that's what her idea was. So she said the institute has to be in the front and house has to be at the back. That I remember very clearly. And then we followed that. Said, okay, this is the right thing to do.
Side over here.
It's very interesting how Guruji developed the art of teaching, his own practice, as a kind of method to conduct the group classes. I remember it very clearly. And it's fresh, still it is fresh in my mind, I would say. For example, in schools, when he was teaching in school, that's how perhaps I just caught it, though it's not that very intelligently I looked at it. I was also in a playful mind, not that I applied my mind to see that what he does, but still from inside there was some inner ties where perhaps I had to choose this path. And I remember that very well in schools, how he used to teach. Always I used to feel that whenever there was a free time, when there was no school or holidays and kind of thing, I used to go with him to see what he does. Though there was not much interest as such, how to say. Because it's not that I was all the time having that great inclination. But still my mind was a bit bent on this side. And though I had not planned that I will become a yoga teacher, there was a simple mind where there was no calculation of it that what I should become. But there was a tendency to watch what he does. So I remember how he used to teach in schools, how he used to make people to stand in a line so that it has to be properly lined so that he could catch how when they are doing the asanas, he can catch if they do any mistakes. He himself, while practicing, I could see that sometimes doing very quickly, very fast, and sometimes going very slow with each asana. The timing also, I remember standing poses timing. Though while teaching in the general classes, he used to stay in the pose. But while doing at home, sometimes he used to just sort of go quickly with one after the other asanas and then go to the main, like forward bend or back bends or balancings. But then staying in the postures, I could watch when he started really keeping up the timing of Trikonasana or Parshokonasana. I remember him using the props, like we had a window sill of 1 foot. The window used to have a window sill 1 foot inside in the room. So I remember when he had bad catch in his back, he used that window sill as we use the Tressler now, putting his hand on that and turning his back, etc. We had one wooden box, a big wooden box. That was another furniture we had apart from that wooden cupboard in the wall. And many a time our books used to be inside. And that wooden box he used as a prop sometimes for backbending action, Urdhvanurasana, etc. Not he himself doing. But when others could not do, he just pointed out that something with a box like this, if you have got, you can do. So the idea of props was there, in his mind. Many a time he has asked the beds. We used to have roll mattress in the house because there was no place to spread the mattress. So that he had used sometimes back in the early 50s, etc. to make. I had watched him teaching people with polio. A girl used to come having this polio problem. And he asked me to bring the garden brick. We had a small garden and he said, pick up that brick and bring it. So I brought that brick. I was not knowing what he is exactly going to do with that brick. But then he placed it between the ankles and asked that girl to hold. She was a South Indian girl having the polio. Then handkerchief he tied because the foot was dropping. So he had that big handkerchief and he tied it to feet and the brick. And that I remember very well. That first he gave between the knees, then he gave that brick between the feet, just to say that he was telling the parents that she's so young that I cannot make her to do anything right now, but at least take care that you tie her legs in this manner for a while, so that her foot is held. Otherwise, the foot was dropping because of polio. So these ideas perhaps were coming to him, looking at the patients, that how he has to work. The practice I remember very well that folding of the blankets earlier was unknown. Nobody was knowing how to use the blankets simply, because it was simple way like spread anything on the floor and start doing. But for Sarvangasana, I remember how he used 2 blankets for his shoulder and neck to keep that chest elevated the first day. And then he told me, he said, see, this blanket, if I use, there is no choking in the throat. And freedom is there. So that's how we realize. Blanket putting for Viparita Dandasana, no mats, no sticky mats, all these things were unknown to us. So simple blankets used to be there. And then he opened that blanket and made it lengthwise little longer, so that he could keep head on one side and feet on the other side, and the blanket he could hold between the head and the feet in Viparita Dandasana, so it doesn't slip off. So these things, it was wonderful to watch that. Suddenly, when he opened the blanket, I was just watching, I said, what is he doing with the blanket? And then he went to Viparita Dandasana and looked at my face. So that gave that Viparita Dandasana position, he could hold properly the blanket between the head and the feet. So these kind of things I have noticed from very beginning, that inner feeling was there, how he has to go with the practice. And Hanumanasana, the blanket rolling underneath the thigh, etc. So these ideas came to him definitely in this manner. I remember him teaching in National Defense Academy, where these army people he had to teach. And that quickness and kind of things, what they need, really feeling strong with the practice. It was wonderful to watch. So his teaching method, doing method, all this really he developed, observing himself, what people need, how it has to be worked. And in 60s, I could see the refinement, absolute so much refinement in his practice that not even a single muscle will move anywhere wrongly. I remember the balancings when he used to do. It was not just a pleasure to see what he is doing. For others, it was, something wonderful he is doing. But for me, I could see that the crude way of presentation, like Bakasana and Kukutasana, etc., changed. and a refinement came. And there he started explaining to me about his skin fiber, muscle fibers, though I was not catching it very clearly, but I could feel that yes, he moves those areas in such a manner that you don't feel a rough action anywhere. So in 60s, I think that the refinement came so much, the rolling of the skin, etc. Now when he says, I understand that why he was talking about rolling the skin, round shape, round going thigh, etc. But in 60s, I could watch that the refinement has come in such a way that there is no muscular struggle anywhere. Even on his face, the things change. He used to be really quiet. Earlier to that, yes, the fire we could see, the struggle I could see that he is struggling with every other posture. But in 60s, Ekpat Shishasana or like Kaundin, the balancings like Kaundinyasana, all this was really very smooth. Forward bends, I remember in 62, 63 when he started with the timings. First we started with Janu Shishasana half a minute, just one side, both the sides like that. But then the smooth flow of timing, like 2 minutes in each posture. So this kind of thing I really witnessed, seeing him that how he works. And when I started doing, I could make it out very clearly that when he goes to Urdhva Kukutasana, the way he takes his Padmasana leg on the upper arms to go for the balancing. Earlier that roughness was there, and then smoothly he just used to move his leg. And the speed, that was something beautiful to see that he used to have the speed at right moment, not any moment, not just going with the speed, going with fast movement, but exactly in complicated areas where, in complicated movements where he has to be very quick, like placing his Padmasana leg on the arms for Urdhva Kukutasana. He used to go quickly to put that, and it is immediately a second moment I could see that all the ruffleness stopping. Absolutely quiet, and then he will go smoothly lifting himself, which you can see now in the film, like the old films that are available. But in his practice, I could see these changes, that how to bring beauty in that posture, rupa, how to go with that smoothness so that the struggle is not seen. Because when he took photographs for Light on Yoga, it was really a great job for him as well as for the cameraman, I would say. Both really struggled to see that no shade will come anywhere. And whenever he was not satisfied with his posture, he will say, no, again I will try. So we had plenty of photographs which was afterwards rejected. I mean, he rejected himself. He said, no, this one is not good. And every other asana, he worked in such a manner that it shows that. And that's why I think whenever you see these postures, there is such a smooth flow of everything. It was, that time in those days he was not explaining to us. Now he explains. Now he says that, look, my Viprit Dandasana, how I do and how you do, this comparison has come later. That's why you can now make out that yes, when we do, we are just give a sort of rough action over there, and he gives a smooth action over there. But in those days, he didn't explain these things. But in his doing process, I could catch that there is an absolute smooth flow of everything. And that was something really beauty to see. And some of the asanas, for the photographs, he has to really work like, I could see that how he's sort of working with that part by part he will go, like if it is just a balancing pose in Kaundinyasana or Galavasana, he would work in that. We miss all these films that other people have taken. I remember in Bombay, he did Galavasana, Padmasana, putting Padmasana leg and balancing that Padmasana leg on one hand. He did Adho Mukha Svanasana, throwing his legs in the air. He just did Padmasana and came on his right hand to do Galavasana. Then again releasing his legs, he went back to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Then throwing the legs in the air, putting the Padmasana in the air, he just came on the left hand and did Galavasana. So this also he had that kind of knack or that quickness, and more than, I don't think it was just a physical control over there, because nobody can just do with the physical control like this. But he has that freedom. He was not having any fear complex. I remember that, and some people have taken that film also, but now we don't know who. Those foreigners, when they used to come with the camera, they had filmed it, but I don't know whether now it will be anywhere available. But same Galavasana, when he did as a practice, as a sadhana, that was very clear. Doing as a demonstration, when he has to demonstrate, he has to see that he attracts the people. So this kind of Galavasana or Hanumanasana from Viparit Chakrasana was something attractive for the mass. And that is required sometimes, because the mass doesn't accept just if you show them something slowly going and kind of thing. Now they are accepting it. If we explain, at least the audience is ready to accept. They say, please explain to us what is happening. And they want to give the ears. But in those days, they were not prepared even to listen to anything. The subject, it was unknown. And it was not only unknown, but it was not even popular as such. They knew that by doing this, nothing is going to happen. That was the mind, what you call profession-oriented mind, that if we have to learn something, if we get money, we will do it. If nothing is going to come out of it, then better not to learn. Because that was not of importance. But now people know the importance of it. So I could see that when it was for the mass, he could do Galavasana in that manner. Really jumping in and putting the Padmasana leg in the air and come on the right hand to land. And when he used to practice, there was a smoothness. There was that understanding was there, that now it's a practice. It's a time of sadhana, where he won't show this roughness in his movement or not gimmicks like thing. But he will go with the understanding how this right leg, how this side Padmasana has come, how that side Padmasana has come. It was a joy to see when he did Parshva Kukutasana with the opposite leg. I remember that very clearly. Because normally in Parshva Kukutasana, when you put your Padmasana leg, the open leg side, that means the second side leg, you can easily put it pushing when you place it on arm, and you can balance. But when first time he did, I could see that. I said, he's doing something differently. I asked him, I said, is it wrong? That means always you take this leg. When you do Padmasana, that outer leg has to go to the side. That's how I remember the asana. That if you have to do Parshva Kukutasana, if right leg is the first and left comes over the right, then I have to do on the right side my Parshva Kukut, because I can push my left leg the other way. If I have to do on the left side, my right leg has to push the other way. So this is what fixed idea of mine in Parshva Kukutasana, that the other side leg, I can easily push and go like a twisting action, because Parshva Kukutasana needs really the spinal twist in the sacrum to go to that posture. But that day he did the same leg, and I was wondering, I said, is there something wrong? He's doing something wrong, I thought, because he's putting the same leg, inner leg to push. Then I followed him. I said, oh, he's doing something, let me also do that. And I knew that it is so difficult, because it was the fixed inner leg which he had to push it. And the moment he got it, he said, I'm going to give this also for the Light on Yoga book. So on that day, after finishing, we went to the studio and he took that photograph, and we have added that in Light on Yoga. First, I thought he's doing something wrong, but it was not wrong. He really created that, because he told me then, he said, I was wondering that why we are not doing this other side. Parshva Kukutasana, opposite leg is so easier to put that you can just push that leg. There is a space for that leg to go the other way, so we can balance. But the inner leg hasn't got the space. So your Padmasana leg has to be really very compact. For that reason, to do on the same side. So that was his way of thinking, that if something is difficult, he won't give up. He would think in that manner, that if this is difficult, why it is difficult, and how am I to reach? How am I to do that? And that's how the Pashakukutasan, the other side, was created by him that way. And that is very clear in my mind, the way he did it, where I thought he's doing something wrong, but he did something right, and which was more difficult or complicated than the usual Pashakukutasan. Hamsasan also same thing. After that, he thought of that Hamsasan. His Mayurasa always we keep the hand this way, toes, fingers inside. So he thought that why not this way? And I remember that very clearly. He did that Hamsasan, and then he said, I will give this also for lighter yoga. So that was that time, somewhere between 59 and 62, 63. These new creation came from his side. So he had that creative mind, but not the creativity in that sense where he will just go for what you call easy or petty things. If it's a creative this thing, he will look into it that in which way it is advanced than what it is, what normally it is. He didn't go for simplifying it. Now the creativity is just to simplify it. Props he, of course, discovered to simplify it for the people to do, not for himself. And he told, when this kind of props came, he said, I may do it, who knows, at the age of 80 or 90, when I just cannot manage to do, perhaps I may use these props. But now for the people, it is fine. And this idea came to him because even he had to really handle those people who were really suffering, like tumor, brain tumor, spinal problem, where he had to really literally lift them, give them that freedom. And they used to feel that when he touches, there is no pain. Then he used to come and tell that, yesterday whole day I just did not get the pain. So he could realize that that's this kind of support, if I give, they don't get the pain. So how to do it? With the props. And that's how the props came into the picture. But not for the sake of simplification, but for those people who cannot manage to do. But now he says, use those props a bit intelligently so that you are not dead on that prop. One should not make oneself dead on that prop, but use it in proper way to have the understanding how to get the life. And as far as the asanas are concerned, his creativity was of that level where he did not fall from this step, but rather he would go one step ahead to see what happens. Like the Natarajasana. Natarajasana was earlier said by his teacher that hold the toe and one hand forward extending. But then he started thinking that why not go like Ekpad Raj Kapotasana, so to hold with both the hands the leg and balance, which is more difficult. With one hand forward, at least you can somehow balance and you are holding the toes there. The foot need not come to the head that close. But then he started thinking that why not arch that spine still furthermore? And that's how it's the Natarajasana. That's his creativity with holding the foot with both the hands. Perhaps people will not know that because now it is so much, spread. The asanas, I think he made the people familiar with the asanas. He introduced these asanas. I don't think in 50s anybody was knowing standing asanas. He was criticized for the standing asanas. When he was doing standing asanas, people used to say, oh, this is something like any exercise. They are not asanas. Though Krishnamacharya's method tells about the standing asanas, but now now it is established, even if they don't belong to Iyengars, but still now it has been established and it has been accepted. He was the first one to do that. Okay. When Guruji started going to Bombay to teach, in those days in 1950, 51, he used to go travel by train because that was the cheapest thing. And you were not getting bus or taxi now, these days are what you get. So the cheapest thing was the train. And in that also, it was Saturday, he used to choose, had chosen Saturday and Sunday. First Saturday he started going. Then Sunday also was added when class became slightly bigger in the size. He used to travel in that race special because Saturdays from Pune to Bombay, there was a race special train going because Bombay was the place where race was going on. and Pune also in some few months in Pune. So he used to travel in that race special, and it was a third class bogie. He never traveled in first class. The money was the big problem in those days, so he traveled in the third class bogie. And these people, those who were race goers, they were also used to be. They also used to be there, and all the time discussing about the horse, the numbers, and how much they are going to put the money. And this was the thing. It was a bit awkward for him, but he used to, because there was no other way. These people were all the time smoking, eating, and they were gamblers. But it was the cheapest thing for him to go, and he used to travel with them. And they were not knowing that he is a yoga teacher and he's going to Bombay to teach yoga. But he was knowing something about the race and race horses also. Because earlier to that in Pune, he was teaching the students who were horse trainers. Or these books they published for the race, this thing. That was in one of the press where he was teaching press owner. So he knew about all these things. And he was good at what you call he used to read the palm or something, so this used to strike to him that which horse will win. And he used that siddhi also to some extent, but then he stopped. He said it's not very good to encourage these people going to the race, etc. But he used to sometimes give the numbers that which will win. That used to just sort of, it's an intuition. Just stayed away, just with the intuition it used to strike to him. He was traveling with these people. In Bombay, it was horrible in the beginning. This area where he was staying was cheap. That's why he had to find a hotel which is cheap, so that he had not to spend really the money as such. And even in those hotels, again, the same people used to be there. Nights drinking, whole night, then no sleep for him, because they used to give him a room to stay. But the noise and everything used to be so much. The bottle sound, people drinking, talking, fighting, all these things used to be at night, and no sleep at night. It was difficult days, but he faced it. Once, I mean, you will be surprised that when he had to go first time to Switzerland, he had to go to get his passport done and tickets and kind of, this was all new to him to go for all these things. Now the agents were not there. In these days, you just go to the agent and just ask the person to get the things done. But in those days, nothing. He has to go personally everywhere. And when he went like this, he was caught by some people. Some person just came and he said, hello. They had known him as an Iyengar who is teaching yoga, and tried to mislead him, taking him at the wrong place, which he realized immediately. He said, this is not the place to come. And he just came back from that place where they were just dragging him to go. And he was going for his visa, passport, and exchange kind of thing, all what he needed. But fortunately, he was saved from all these kind of problems. But otherwise, it's true, it happened. He never, moment he saw that, he knew that this is the area where the prostitute stays. So he just returned back from there, that these people are misleading him. From then onwards, he became very careful not to ask anyone just on the street about this when he had to go for visa or passport office, etc. And that was, he always says that I was saved by this, otherwise I was taken at a wrong place. So if mind was weak, perhaps it would have been dragged the other way. But I don't think he had any day that weak mind. He was always strong. And he was for this always. That's why he just could not, nobody could take him on the wrong track. His talk was known to him. Though people around him was not of that. Now their respect is a different matter. Now subject is respected, he is respected, everything is different. But in those days, subject was not respected. Nobody just bothered if we say that he is a yoga teacher. And he had no name as such, what he has now. Now it's a different thing. But in those days, yes, when he has traveled to Bombay, it was horrible. That's why I don't think that we traveled with him in those days. He never took me or took us or my mother, because he knew that this is not. When financially little bit he became solid, then he knew that he could travel now in Deccan Queen. So then it was all right, but not in this race special. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Um, I remember 1961-62 when Guruji was here in Pune. Guruji's Guru was here in Pune. And also we had been to Madras when we had school holidays, summer holidays. And yes, still the memory is so fresh that we really enjoyed his company. I could see that he was really strict with Guruji, even in those days. What he wanted Guruji to do, he will see that being his pupil, he will do what he wants him to do. And with us, he used to be absolutely the other way, absolutely soft, laughing, making fun, and especially when Suchita and Savita, these were young children, small children, but he used to play with them. Even my father was quite surprised to see all these things that Guruji playing with these children. But with my father, he would be very strict. He will see that, strict in a sense. I think it was a kind of demand from the student, from a pupil, that he should be like this. That kind of demand really made Guruji also to be on this path with that firmness and strictness. Perhaps he realized that Guruji had something in him. It's like he may not say that he had chosen him for this purpose, but still he could see something in Guruji, that Guruji has some capacity. So when he came to Pune, he used to teach us sometimes. He saw Guruji teaching us. Once we had to give a demonstration, myself and Guruji's son, Sri Bhashyam. So we were preparing, and Guruji told us, T. Krishnamacharya, that what are the asanas he was expecting us to do on the platform. And we were practicing. And that he was very strict. He said, if you have to stand on the platform, you should practice. And Guruji finishing his class, my father came at that moment, and he started correcting us on that how we are supposed to present on the platform, which direction we have to stand. If it's forward bend, how to face the audience, what they need to see when we are performing forward extensions or backward extensions, and also the corrections. Every little detail he was telling us that keep the toe in this manner, you get better balance. See now the stretch of the leg. If you extend here, the legs remain straight. This all Guruji's Guru was watching when he was teaching us. And I think he was impressed by that when he saw that every other detail my father is explaining there. And with that appreciation, he actually went to North India and once again came back to Pune. We had a big program at that time, and he gave that golden medal to Guruji, saying that a best yoga teacher. And that was something, he had that big mind. He accepted that time that yes, Guruji has really done some great work. And as far as otherwise, apart from this, his lecture time or classes time or program, etc., when he was doing, apart from that timing, he used to really give us great time. Like he used to sort of play with us, tell us the stories, his days with his teacher, how strict his teacher was, what he was expecting from him, etc. And then with these children, like my younger sisters, used to play and talk to us in Hindi, because very rarely he used to speak Hindi in South India. There he used to speak either in Tamil or Kannada or Telugu. But here he used to really enjoy speaking in Hindi. He has picked up some Marathi words, asking us that what do you say to this in Marathi, and then referring those Marathi words while talking to us. So he had that as far as languages are concerned, because he was a Sanskrit scholar. Obviously, as any other language comes from, Indian languages come from Sanskrit, he could catch those words very quickly and use those terms and speaking to us in that language. He was really enjoying in that way, and we enjoyed his company as well. Because, how to say, with Guruji he was very strict, we could see, and with us he was just sort of so much friendly. Like small children, he will make any joke, he will cut the jokes. Even while having the food, he will say what we don't like, he will say, no, this is what you have to eat. And make us to eat. And then explain it in such a way, look, this is the taste of this vegetable. If you eat in this manner, your health improves, your blood circulation improves. He used to talk in that language, and really it was an attraction for us that yes, so many things he's talking about, stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata. Anytime he will just sort of come with the stories and tell us while having food or while practicing. Pranayama he taught us. And he used to, he really invited. He said, look, tomorrow morning you are getting up at 5 o'clock. I am going to teach you pranayama. So we used to be ready. Okay, he's going to teach us pranayama. So get up at 5 o'clock, get ready, and sit in front of him, and he used to teach us. So it was a different experience. It was very nice to us in that way. And my mother, especially her food preparation and everything, he would enjoy that. And always even after my mother expired, he said, it's only Rama who can prepare the food in that manner. Only she knew that what I eat, what I like, and what I don't like. He said, how are you going to look after me? Only she was the person who can. I said, no, every other thing, whatever you ask, I will do it. Because he came during Guruji's 60th birthday, and that time my mother was not there. After this institute was built, he came. When I really insisted, I said, Guruji, we will take care of every other thing and see that what you like, we will be preparing the same way. I said, I will level best try to prepare how my mother was preparing. He accepted that. That's his great mind. He accepted that. Otherwise, normally he never used to go anywhere as such. If at all, he used to go to north on yatra, going to temples, etc. But otherwise, he never moved later from Madras as such. But he came to Pune, and that memory is still fresh for me. We really enjoyed his company.
I hope you enjoyed this special episode of On the Light. In closing, I'd like to read a passage from Yoga Rahasya that Geetaji has written. It's from volume 13, number 2, 2006, page 24 and 25. She's writing on the feeling of devotion and dedication. The devotion and dedication is an inner feeling. It does not come from the head, but from the heart. If you have to become a real yogi, you have to practice yoga. You have to practice 8 aspects, and one day, it just happens. You just feel the spiritual heart filled with devotion. You may feel like having an idol of Sage Patanjali and do the puja and worship. So do it. You may begin to do japa. Again, simply do it. Just as Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that even if you offer him anything, such as leaves, flowers, fruit, water, or repeat his name, or surrender the fruits of action, he is pleased, he is satisfied. Your mind has to become clear. It is not that God is going to drink the water offered by you. Basically, you have to develop devotion and dedication. Through karma and jnana, you have to reach bhakti. So the yogic path is inclusive of all these aspects. It is a complete path. Knowing that you are on the right path, you need not worry about how to worship God. You just practice, and the day will come when you begin to understand that. A true and faithful practitioner of yoga will automatically develop devotion. Yoga cannot be practiced without devotion to God. So knowing very well the problems of neophytes, Patanjali hasn't forced Ishvara Pranidhana. He knows that all cannot surrender to God, the unknown entity. Ishvara Pranidhana requires not only a different mental set, but also maturity of intelligence. Therefore, one should have shraddha, faith, virya, vigor to practice, smriti, memory. Remember that you are practicing yoga. Remember the ultimate aim of yoga, the very purpose of yoga. Yoga is not practiced for earning money or to build up your profession. Lastly, after shraddha, virya, smriti, is samadhi prajna, the maturity of intelligence which leads toward samadhi. Sama means equal and di means buddhi. Buddhi is intelligence, the inner intelligence. Prajna is intense awareness. The intelligence has to spread equally everywhere with sharp awareness when you practice asana, pranayama, or dhyana. The memory of the ultimate aim is hidden in this samadhi prajna. Iyengar Yoga is basically teaching you to develop this awareness. In order to have this sama buddhi, you need devotion. Primarily, the ego has to drop so that buddhi remains untainted. Such clear and pure intelligence cleanses and sanctifies the consciousness, chitta. Devotion comes from that pure heart. Therefore, it is said that yoga is samadhi and samadhi is yoga. Understand that this is the approach. That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening. Namaskar.